Welcome to the Fishbowl Radio, everybody. My name is Chief here, and joining me today is Jalen. We are going to be doing our college football bowl mania prediction show here today. But before that, we got an interesting topic to talk about here, which the NCAA looks like they're trying to make this new, how will we say, like a new FBS, but it's going to be a tier higher than FBS, which means the G5 is going to become the new FCS if this gets approved. Without further ado, let me introduce everybody to Jalen. How you doing today, Jalen?
Doing good, Chief. I love picking some bowl games, bowl season, one of the best things in college football. But yeah, that is interesting though. That's going on in all of college athletics.
So let's dive into this topic here. So they basically said G5, you're going to be the new FCS without saying it. Like they're setting the stage up for it. Like I said before, I've said this. I mean, we've covered this on here many times. Like going back, you could watch our episodes. We brought this up several times here, and now these TV contracts are dictating what these schools are doing here. They're trying to get more money, and the money's going to win out at some point. And I think, in my prediction, there's going to be a power two. Now, who will be the power two? In my opinion, it's going to be the SEC and the Big Ten. Look how big these conferences have gotten, okay? And there was an article about Greg Sankey was asked a question by a reporter, will the SEC break away from the NCAA? And this isn't the first time this was asked about. This is like 2 or 3 years, and he kind of dodges around the question, but he kind of gave something that I think was kind of an interesting take on it here. He said, for us to break away from the NCAA, we would have to do it in all sports, not just college football, but NCAA basketball, baseball, softball, and so forth. So now, how college athletics works, you could probably figure this out if you just do a quick Google search of who makes the most money in all the sports. Football's king in America. It will probably always be that way. We're born and bred into the football culture here. If you ask 100 people on the street, probably 80% of them will say that football is their, favorite sport to watch. And the TV ratings dictate that, and people watch those kind of games. That's why Alabama got in over Florida State. Not because of resume, it's all about the money. I don't care who you ask. That's just plain what it is. Alabama will get more people to watch than Florida State. Once again, TV ratings and TV contracts matter. So, and with the prevalence of streaming on these different services arising, like Amazon's even has dipped into football games themselves. Look at the NFL, for example. They have Thursday night football, which is playing right now. So you look at this, the economics of the situation. We are heading toward the end of that road there. So Jalen, I think the question becomes here. I said 50 to 60 teams. They came out and said 100 teams. I don't think 100 teams is actually really the case. Some people say maybe 20 is actually really the number. How many teams do you think compete in this new tier if it does become approved, which I think it will be?
I think it will be approved, and honestly, I think it's going to be about, I would say probably 60 to 70 teams, because you're going to have those lower tier teams that that's not in the biggest conference like the SEC, but they're in a great conference like the Sun Belt or the Mountain West, and to the point where I know we had this conversation before. It's like, okay, so how are you going to benefit all these schools, because these are Division I schools, and according to which I got right here by NCAA President Charlie Baker said, his proposal is to allow the most highly resourced schools in Division One to pay athletes through a trust fund, and that is just the starting point as he tries to shift the association to be more proactive than reactive. Now, the biggest thing right there is the biggest resource schools, and you know what schools are those? SEC. What else? Big Ten. Those Power Five big schools who can provide the most money. So I think that, yeah, I think it's going to pass. But when he says like resource schools, can you really put the Sun Belt, the Mountain West, even the Big 12 losing Texas and Oklahoma? Can you even kind of even put them in the mix when it comes to paying student athletes?
I the Big 12 is in an interesting situation. I think them losing Texas and Oklahoma was there. That was a seismic move, and I think it caught like when that happened. I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? But I'm gonna take it back a step further here. Let's go back in time a little bit. I remember late 2000s, early 2010s when the first conference realignment. That was the start of where we're at today with everything going on because there were some Raging Cajun fans that wanted UL to join Conference USA. Now it's benefited UL by staying in the Sun Belt because Conference USA is a shell of itself back in the early 2010s. But you look at like how these dynamics shifted here. Um, with like schools like Tulane, they might actually get into this thing because Tulane has a large endowment, is a big lawyer school, law school basically. Liberty's got a lot of money themselves too. These private institutions like Notre Dame, and they make a lot of money, okay? Um, and that's gonna. I'm wondering where Notre Dame fits in all this because they have a good relationship with ACC, but they're gonna break away in all sports. Maybe Memphis gets in there too. Um, it just depends on the Big 12. I think is in an interesting spot here. It's kind of hard to see who dies first, ACC or Big 12, because I think I don't think they both survive. I don't know what death days they're gonna have here. It all depends on when their TV contracts in and what the new deal is gonna be. Now, Florida State, if this is, come up again recently that they rejected an offer to join the SEC way back in the early 90s. If they be in the SEC right now, it might be in this tier, which I think they will eventually get absorbed into the SEC anyway. I think they're going to probably end up going that route. Same thing with Clemson. I think Clemson joins the SEC at some point too, once the ACC contract's up. So that would be probably, the biggest footprint increase of all these schools here. Now, what happens with the rest of the ACC? Some are going to get plucked off by the Big Ten, probably. I don't know what schools those would be. Maybe Virginia. You might see Duke, maybe North Carolina. Because the Big Ten, they're almost like an actual Conference USA because they have gone literally from coast to coast. They're not even a geographic conference anymore. They're nationwide, basically. So, like that scheduling is gonna be a nightmare for them to figure out. And like baseball and softball, them players, like we talked about before, that they didn't think about the student athletes when they made them moves at all there. So them having to travel across country to play a 3-game series and having to travel across country back. And you can't take no plane. I mean, you can't take no bus trips. It's all going to be plane trips if you're flying from, let's say, USC to Rutgers for a 3-game series. It just doesn't work, or vice versa. Whoever does, won't play those baseball game series. So I think here that we're gonna have like the SEC and the Big Ten because as far as the Sun Belt goes and the Sun Belt schools, they're gonna slide into FCS category. Like they're gonna be called FBS, but like I'm not trying to offend anybody by calling them schools FCS because I graduated from UL. I know the troubles they went through and stuff, but the writing has been on the wall for like maybe a decade or so. That when you start throwing out ideas, like it's trying to see how the general public like receives. You do a little pebble first, and then everybody starts like messing with the pebble. Like, look, Mike Leach even called out the playoff committee before. Like, well, what we do as Americans, we love committees, and like he basically gave his whole spiel. It's not a college football playoff; it's an invitational, which because perceived things happen that way. But as far as like getting back to the G5 thing, schools like UL, ULM, Louisiana Tech, um, I don't see like why you think they made the buyout so much bigger from FCS to FBS, not buyouts, but like upgrade to go to FBS here. It used to be, I think, what $500,000. Now it's 5 million. That's not just like a drop in the hat for a lot of these schools. That's a lot of money for like a McNeese or somebody to go just become FBS in that way. And the transfer rules like the two like James Madison going to deal with this year. All this stuff's put in place to kind of limit these schools. Their everybody's jumping in this pond right now because they're trying to figure out where their geographics are going to be and set themselves up good for the future here. Now, my next question is college football alive or is it dead? Because is like, for example, okay, you hire a photographer, okay, to go shoot your wedding and shoot your let's say let's do a wedding because a wedding is a very easy example to make for a photographer. You go to the photographer, he's going to do everything you tell him to do, and he should, honestly, right? Because you wrote a contract with the guy and you want to get these shots. Like, I want to get a shot of me and my parents, a shot of me and my aunts and uncles, or, my mom and dad, uh, brothers and sisters, my nieces and nephews, that kind of thing. That makes sense, right? But if the photographer goes in there and starts shooting everybody, like, maybe I don't know, just like shoot the wall or something like that. That doesn't make any sense to do with any weddings. You would be upset because you paid this guy to do a certain thing, right? I mean, you would be visibly upset here. So, um, the players that played before then, they played for the love of football. Some of them knew they wasn't going to be NFL stars, but they still chose to play college football. Nowadays, it's like, we're going to get paid this amount of money and we'll just go to certain schools that pay more for the money. Like, look, I'm okay with guys making money. There's nothing wrong with making money, right? I mean, we all got to live and we all got to pay our bills and stuff, but that's just part of the beast here. Some of these guys just did it because they love the sport. And I think they set the stage up and I think they're playing the student athletes like fiddles because they're still not getting their fair share of the funds anyway because they're signing these small deals or whatever for the majority of them. The majority of them are not making like a lot of money off of it anyway, because especially the smaller schools. But they probably put the smaller schools in a lot more trouble here because they're making a farm system for the Power Five with the G5 schools right now, and that's the way it is. Like you can almost say like the XFL. The G5 is just they're gonna probably end up going to the XFL, and that's way it's going to be here. They'll be the new FCS, and that'll at least give them a spot to continue their professional careers in that, and maybe make the NFL one day. But we'll see what happens with that there. Uh, I mean, at some point, do you have to start paying taxes on this stuff? Do you start? I don't know all the answers to this stuff. I'm just throwing out a bunch of possibilities here. What you think, Jalen? Do they become like university employees at that point?
Man, I'm just gonna say that to answer your previous question, the love for football for most players are not going to be there. These high school athletes coming out of high school, they're going to see which school can give them the most money, which school can pay them the most money. Because if this goes through, you see somebody, let's say Jaden Daniels, and he was at Arizona State. LSU said they would pay him this X amount of dollars. Well, of course, he's gonna go to the SEC school. LSU is already a big name. Plus, they get to make millions. Now, I was reading something earlier that Marvin Harrison Jr., who is the best receiver, well, it's projected as the best receiver in the draft. He's possibly going number 2 overall, and he said he's still thinking about the NFL draft because he wants to come back to Ohio State to not only beat Michigan but win the Big Ten. But when you think about it too, I was looking at some other numbers where it said he could make more in NIL than he do on his rookie contract in the NFL. So it just goes to show you right there, if Ohio State can pay him more than the NFL could pay him as a first round pick, he might actually come back. So it's just situations like that to where it's the love for the game. You want to make it to the pros, or do you just want to get this money? And for a lot of players, it's really all about the money.
I mean, you can't really blame the guy though either. I mean, if you're talented at something, you should be compensated for it, for sure. So, I mean, that's across all platforms. You have to pay to play, basically, right? If you want to be the best, you got to pay them people to do with it. If you want to you get what you pay for technically. So, um, I mean, sometimes the NFL they overpay people. I'm looking at you, Deshaun Watson. Um, but like that kind of thing, right? So you just look at all these things here of everything that's going on, and this it's just so much of it. And does this impact baseball? Does this impact softball? Like UL is a top 25 program at softball. I don't know how many days we have left of that anymore with this new thing going on. Are they gonna go to UL or are they gonna go to like these Power Five schools now because they'll make more money because there's a trust involved in all those schools here that you can literally say, yeah, you're not gonna be playing for no national championship if you go to UL for softball. Now, there's just so much money being thrown around. I just don't see how these smaller schools can compete with it. And they tossed around that idea of the Power Five versus G5 breaking off and making these playoff runs here. It's a lot for not only like I'm kind of sad to see it end this way, honestly, because I loved having a lot of teams, because like it's always interesting to see like different teams come to the different stadiums, and you go to different stadiums and see how fan bases interact with each other, and just getting like these different schools like. And now a lot of that's going to probably end up going away because you won't, be able to see it as much because you'll like the days of having like the transfer portal and like becoming I guess a celebrity on campus, right? Like staying all 4 years. And it means a lot. Like I remember Glenn Dorsey staying all 4 years at LSU and Matt Flynn waiting his time behind Jamarcus Russell and then winning a national championship in 2007. Those days might not really be there anymore for a lot of these guys because they're all like they'll transfer schools. They won't stay 4 years there. So, um, I mean, look, it's gonna be an interesting situation. We'll have to see what happens there, but I th I I'm gonna close my statements with this here. Trying to think if I got everything out that I wanted to say about the topic here. But like, look, in short, what I'm going to summarize here, TV contracts are running college football. There's going to be about 40 or 50 teams that is going to be playing for a national championship in this new division. I don't want to get caught up in the specifics of numbers, but that's around that number that I predict that's going to happen here. You're going to have two big conferences. Big 12 will die. ACC is going to die. Probably within the next decade. If you want, like, we're in the year 2023. I said 2030, it might come sooner than that because I think ACC's contract's up in probably in the 2030. They have some kind of clause that they sign so them other schools can't leave. But back on what we're saying here, in short, like I'm gonna cap about 50 schools. Jalen, you think about 70. I mean, it could be anywhere in between those. Um, I just don't know. There's a lot of money being moved around, and it'll be the Big Ten and the SEC, and you're gonna have like it might be 32 teams. That'd be a perfect playoff system here, but will they play these smaller schools to give them some money to keep their programs going? Hey, they might just to kind of buff up their records here, like the FCS kind of style they got going on here today to keep LSU playing McNeese or Louisiana Tech or ULM or um yeah. So I think in short that we'll have two conferences. It'll be like an AFC and an NFC basically. Think of like the pro model, how they have 32 teams. Might end up being 32, maybe not 50, but there's gonna be some Power Fives that are gonna be joining the G5 pretty soon if they don't raise their funding because I don't see it being too good. Like I think like teams like you could say maybe Arizona. Well, Arizona's got a good basketball program, but is that enough to carry you? Like I'll be like Duke's starting to be really good at football. Okay. Like North Carolina
Mhm.
pretty decent at football. Like historically speaking, Clemson's kind of on a downward trend, but they were good in the late 2010s in football. So but like Georgia Tech, maybe they might be kind of getting, not pushed aside. Vanderbilt, I think, is actually going to be in there because Vanderbilt's got a lot of money too. Um, Trying to think. Arkansas, I think they have a lot of money, so they'll probably stay in there. Like teams like TCU, I'd be kind of worried about, but TCU is like a kind of like they got some money too. Um, I just really don't know, guys. Like I'm trying to think about specific teams and how they fit here. I think LSU is obviously going to be in that tier, but I I think for the majority of it, like I feel like we're losing the soul of college football by this move. What you think, Jalen?
Yeah, I think so too. And the fact that we're talking about all these teams, but then you think about it too, if they split, how these bowl games going to go? How did these conferences go? Because Sun Belt had what 12 teams to make it to a bowl game, but they implement this new thing and they split. It's like, how is that situated? Like, if you get 6 wins, can you still get a bowl? Or are there even still going to be bowl games? I mean, it's just a lot of unanswered questions. And at the same time, it's like, yeah, it's definitely losing the soul of football because now you're making it all about money. And yes, so TV contracts do matter. The money that the people make is when they air the games on TV. Yes, that matters. Like, it's all about money. Any way somebody can make $1 in college football, college basketball, any kind of way, it doesn't matter what sport it is. They're trying to make money, and money is the name of the game. The love has been replaced with money, and it's getting to the players that actually play the game, and it's getting to the fact that like it's just I could say 5 years from now, we'll be having the same conversation, be like, dang, football has really changed. And it might have changed for the worse, but we just don't know. I don't know. It might have changed for the better, but we have to just wait and see.
Yeah. All right, Jalen. So in the current state of things, LSU and UL are both going bowling. So Cajuns have about not even 10 days, basically, on the recording of this here. 9 days until they get into their bowl game, where they'll be taking on Jacksonville State in the New Orleans Bowl. Jacksonville State's 8-4. They're from Conference USA. They only got bowl eligible because of that signing with James Madison. You have to be the only way you can get bowl games being got enough bowl eligible teams, which there's never enough every single year. They managed to be 8-4. So, Jalen, who wins this ball game, dude?
I think the Cajuns are going to take it. I'm proud to see teams like Jacksonville State and James Madison get in, who had a great, especially James Madison had a great year, but they switched going from conference to conference, and you know how I don't have to explain that, but you know how that went. But for the Cajuns, I think they go out there and get the win. They played the New Orleans Bowl in the past. I mean, it's just like a home, kind of like a home game for the Cajuns. The New Orleans is 2 hours away from Lafayette. I think they have a lot of fans packed out there in New Orleans. I think the Cajuns should get the win. I think this game is it's another big game for Coach Des. I honestly think so. I think since losing the bowl game last year, he has to come back this year and win a game and win in all phases of the game. I think the Cajuns can do that. They just have to see if they can do it Saturday when they play against Jacksonville State.
So, Jacksonville State, if you look at their schedule, they only played one Sun Belt school. So, and Cajuns didn't play the Sun Belt school this year. It was Coastal Carolina. They ended up losing that game to Coastal. But Coastal wasn't even the same team as they normally are anyway. Um, the Jacksonville State schedule was kind of they were in Conference USA, so obviously they play a lot of Conference USA teams, and they wasn't really looking. I don't think they really looked that good, to be honest. Like strength of schedule winning percentage is at 47%. They're at 115. Their strength of schedule 122, non-conference opponent win percentage 106. So they have an 8-4 record, but it might be inflated because of scheduling being so weak. That was used against I want to see what the predicted results say. They'll probably give Jacksonville State the win, which they got them beating the Cajuns 26-24. But it's based on ELO. Cajuns do have a weak schedule themselves comparatively to what it is here. They had a 128, 131, and 132. So it's not looking good. This is a huge game for Dez. I don't think you can, if he loses this game, you can't have two straight losing seasons because everybody's gonna start raising eyebrows, and I think they already are, especially after that Southern Miss game and the rest of the games they lost this year.
3 straight.
But yeah, you would have two straight losing seasons. Uh, it it just wouldn't look too good. Um, Dez only has won one bowl game. That was this bowl game. After Napier left, he coached in the 2021 bowl game, but I really want to be wrong about this pick here. I I'm gonna challenge the Cajuns here. I want to see a win on Saturday when they play them on the 16th. I think that should be the date. Yeah, it's the 16th. Looking at it right now, but that's what I want to see. I want to see them pick up the win here, but I don't think it's gonna happen. I think Jacksonville State beats the Cajuns in New Orleans. That's who I'm picking. I just think that, Jacksonville State played a slightly tougher schedule. UAB kind of conference mates here. It's going to depend on the Cajun defense. If they show up, they'll do well. But the Cajuns have played better since Troy and stuff, so we'll see what happens. But I got them losing that game there. Now we're going to switch gears to LSU. Talk about their bowl game against Wisconsin here. A lot of LSU fans are upset they didn't get a ranked opponent, only a 7-5 Wisconsin here. I think LSU will take care of business here, but they can't overlook this game here. Brian Kelly trying to get his 10th win for a second straight season. Jalen, what you think about this matchup here?
Yeah, I think it's a good matchup for the Tigers. I mean, LSU is kind of on a hot streak right now. Jaden Daniels, I feel like he's going to win the Heisman. Malik Neighbors is up there with Marvin Harrison Jr. For the Biletnikoff Award, the best 1-2 punch in college football. I think LSU is just hot right now. They have their best players or some of the best at that position in all of college football. I think LSU is going to take this one. But like you said, never count out Wisconsin, a team out the Big Ten. When I think about Wisconsin, I think about the Melvin Gordon days. He used to run all over everybody. So I wouldn't count Wisconsin out. I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be close, but I think LSU is going to win it at the end.
I think the old ground and pound game will be very effective here, very much so for Wisconsin, especially back in the 2010 days. That was their old thing of doing that. But I think that LSU beats Wisconsin. I don't think it's close. I think LSU's offense will not be contained in this game here. So I got the Tigers winning that one. So let's talk about some men's basketball here. The Raging Cajuns are, currently they're not doing so hot technically, even though they're technically, by speaking here, if we're not going to count any non the teams that ain't in Division One, they would be 3-3 if we excluded those games. But for the sake of keeping official record keeping and stuff, they're 5-3. Going to take on Louisiana Tech here, who's having a good season themselves here. They're 5 and so they got an RPI of 21, but that's we're still it's starting to level out more. But I think I see the Cajuns. I see Cajuns losing this one. I think they'll beat Eastern Kentucky though next week. Who you got, Jalen?
Seeing the Cajuns lose by 20 plus to a Sanford team who I thought they'd go in and give them, kind of a run for their money. Louisiana Tech is playing pretty good. Honestly, they I hate playing against the Cajuns, but I think you're right, Chief. I think they're probably going to lose that one, but bounce back on December 13th at the Cajun Dome against Eastern Kentucky. Where are the Cajuns? I don't know if you noticed, but they're 3-0 at home so far this season. They're playing great at home.
Yeah, they're playing very well at home, but switching over to on the LSU side, I think they're playing Kansas State. They're 7-2. Alabama State's 2-4. That's their next two games here. I say LSU lose against Kansas State. I think they'll pick up the win against Alabama State though. But as far as LSU this year, not playing the best for themselves here. They're 5-3. I think they'll be 6-4 by the time they head into a big matchup against Texas. But who you got, Jalen?
Yeah, I think this one's a little easier pick for me. LSU, getting a new coach. He's trying to develop these players, new guys coming in. This is what second year with the Tigers now. I think they will lose to Kansas State, a team that went to the, if I'm not mistaken, they went to the Elite Eight. Might have made it to the Final Four last year, if I'm not mistaken. Kansas State returned a lot of veteran players on I mean, honestly, I don't think it's going to be a close one. LSU is still trying to gel as a team. Who knows what's going to happen with the whole Jalen Cook situation? He's eligible when the SEC play comes, or he's not going to be able to play for LSU. I don't know. Transferring back from Tulane, so it's a lot of unanswered questions with the LSU men's basketball team. But I hope they get things together and can actually compete in the SEC.
Yeah, we'll see what about that situation comes out to be, but UL women's here. They're going to go on the road to the Pete Maravich Center, take on number 7 LSU. I think LSU wins this game over UL. Be really tough. LSU, they got basically the all-star staff in women's basketball. I got them beating Lamar, and I think that's what will happen. Who you got, Jalen?
Oh, the old matchup, UL versus LSU, but this time it's on the women's side. I think LSU is gonna win this game. They're getting things back on track. They just got Angel Reese back, and I think their team is still an all-star team. They're stacked. But I think UL will make it a good game. But in the end, I think LSU is going to take that one. But I think UL for sure can bounce back when they're going to be at the Cajun Dome on December 13th, just like the men against Lamar.
Yep. LSU, they'll be playing McNeese on Tuesday, December 12th. I got LSU beating McNeese that game. I think they'll take care of business. Who you got in that one, Jalen?
Yeah, LSU. I think they're easily going to take down McNeese in-state rival. You know those games are kind of some of the biggest games. I think LSU is going to take that one also.
Yeah, so I mean, before we get off here, Jalen, I got to hear your thoughts here. Would you have taken Florida State over Alabama?
If we're taking money out of the equation, and we're going by the four best teams, I would have had Florida State and Alabama in it. I think I honestly would have taken out Washington.
Okay. I mean that's very interesting there. Um, I see your point though. Florida State's defense, I feel like the wrong team got punished. I think if you look at the weakest one, I think Washington definitely is just the sore stump sticking out there, even though they played. I know strength of schedule kind of matters at that point there too, but I think that I never understood why they got like when they introduced the idea of the the college football playoff way back in 2014 when they made its first debut, when they mentioned it like in 2012, 2011 of making this a four-team playoff. To me, it didn't make sense because let's get a bunch of people in a room and just debate for hours on end when we have the BCS system and we have there's three part there. If you remember, there were three parts of the BCS. The BCS wasn't perfect, but I think the games it produced would have been better than the committee's games. Now,
Yeah,
um, you would have had these four teams coming out of the BCS, and it probably would have equaled or basically gave you the same matchups here. And you would have still have the human element, and you would have computers in there too. You would have two of the three being in there, being basically done on being a human. The coaches would vote in it. AP poll would be another vote as well. So it'd be kind of like nice to see what you would have a lot of human interaction, but you would still have some computer like formula tweaking in it and seeing. But because I think it'd been kind of like unjust because Florida State's defense has played well. I mean, you hold like Louisville has been scoring points all year long, and then to get held down like they did, even though their offense wasn't that great. But do you remember the saying, "Defense wins championships"?
oh yeah,
Something to think about. So, in a day and age where offense is the way to go for a lot of teams. Defense, like Norvell and them played very good defense this year. Look at what they did to LSU in the opening game of the year. They limited that offense to 24 points. Now, granted, like they did enough plays, they scored enough points. LSU defense unfortunately left them down in the beginning part of the game. I mean, first game of the season. But look, I'm all about consistency, winning championships. If you're consistent the whole entire year and you beat those teams and you find a way to win, I think you should get rewarded in some way, shape, or form. Being undefeated, undefeated is not easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So, yeah, but I think I'll do it all here for the Fishbowl Radio. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you have a great and wonderful night and have a great rest of your week. Have a good night, Fishbowl Nation. And also, thank y'all for 1,500 followers on Twitter. Shout out to everybody that follows the Fishbowl
Woo
on all
woo.
social media platforms. Thank y'all for tuning in. Hope you have a great and wonderful day. Bye, everybody.